behind me. Keep your hands in the air and walk forward. Do it now.
After his arrest, Malcolm Tyreman was found to have bullets of the type used in the Asda supermarket raids.
Keep walking.
More significantly, he also had bullets of the type used in the murder.
You are an associate of Gracewith's. But we have evidence. You see, I haven't just been sat here for the last 3 or 4 days since Gracewith died. We've been working hard. You know the sort of inquiry this is.
Sanderson eventually confessed to a number of armed robberies with David Gricewith and claimed that Gricewith had once bragged to him about killing Sergeant Speed.
And Tyreman have been setting these jobs up.
So, both these men had worked with Gricewith. Was one of them his accomplice on the day of the murder?
Have you anything to say?
No.
But you're in a very serious position. You must have something to say.
At that stage, police arrested David Gricewith's girlfriend. After 2 days of holding back, she told them what she knew. On the day of the murder, David Gricewith had come home wet and with blistered feet. He told her that he'd killed a policeman and he'd hitched a lift from Leeds. That evening, she'd driven him from their house in Tholthorpe back to Leeds. He'd left his car there less than half a mile from where the murder was committed. Then, most dramatic of all, she told detectives who David's accomplice had been that day. Ray Basham called John Conboy, and the statement was read over to detectives from West Yorkshire.
And you can pick up from there.
That afternoon, 3 West Yorkshire detectives sat waiting in a lorry park in York, watching as the vehicles came home. They were looking for a truck driver called Paul Guest.
We asked to see the work record for Paul Guest on the 31st of October 84, so they dug through the ledgers and opened it up, and there it were in black and white. On the 31st of October he wasn't at work.
Here it is.
Yeah. The manager told us he would be back round about 5 o'clock, and we'd about 2.5 hours, so we sat there having a cup of coffee, kicking his heels, waiting, and all the thoughts of the murder went back over the 2.5 years, all the good suspects that we'd had, and the fact that they'd all come to nothing. And here we were, sat in the final hours and wondering whether this were our fella.
I knew John Speed quite well because I was in charge of the burglary squad for 18 months in Leeds, and John worked for me there as a sergeant. Yeah. He was a family man and a nice fella, right nice fella. And it's personal, it becomes personal when a colleague gets shot like that.
With these sorts of things, and in particular on a day like this, that you get all sorts of difficulties. I'm Detective Sergeant Bancroft from the police at Leeds. I'm arresting you for the murder of Police Sergeant John Richard Speed on Wednesday, the 31st of October 1984 at Kirgate. You're not obliged to say anything unless you wish to do so. Whatever you do say may be taken down in writing and given in evidence.
I don't understand. It was David Gricewith I was with. It was him that shot the policeman. I couldn't believe what were happening. David shouted at me, "Run!" But I couldn't. Then I saw the second policeman running from the arches towards David. David pointed the gun at him. The policeman threw himself to the ground. David walked up to him. And he just shot him. I was seeing this, but I couldn't believe it were happening.
I felt very bad when it came out, the fact that Griceworth had been the gunman, because I hadn't identified him. All this time, this 2.5 years, I'd been telling everybody that I would know this man, that I would recognise him, and then I didn't recognise him. And the thing that settled my mind regarding that was at court when Mr. Guest made it known that he'd only recognised Griceworth from his hair and his nose, and that was a man who was a close associate of his, but he'd failed to recognise him positively on the mortuary slab. So I was pleased about that from my own point of view. Guest, for me, could have gone away for the rest of his life, and I think he deserved to. But I don't feel anything for him. He just doesn't come into my thoughts at all. The thing that somebody took best of all, as we passed the parish church with Guest in the car on the way in, Jock Tange just virtually said, and he said it to himself as much as anything else, "Well, you can rest now, John. We've got him."